Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to author Michael Falciani. His novel, The Raven and the Crow, Dark Storm Rising, totally fits the story of family betrayal from the dregs of society to the royal court. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here. I love how you did that introduction. That was great.
Oh my gosh.
It is the dregs of society. I love it.
It was just an incredibly fast-paced read. So how did you come up with this crazy story? It was so intriguing, well done, and
well, thank you. Yeah, I've been an epic fantasy fan my whole world and my whole life, and I got so much going on up here. One day I was sitting I was out on the hot summer sands of Nevada, and I was working at this iron factory, and I had to carry these gigantic rings across these sands. We called it the boneyard. And as I got across, I was like, I wish I could just step through this thing and portal on over there. And right then I was like, ooh, that would be a cool idea for a fantasy novel. And that's really where it started. And then from there, I just did whatever I felt like I should be doing.
How long did it take to write?
Only 25 years. No big deal. You know.
Okay.
It took me 25 years to work on it. Of course, not all that time was writing, having a family, raising kids, coaching. A lot of that took time, but it was definitely a labor of love. It was something I wanted to do ever since I was young. And when I was introduced to epic fantasy as a kid, I said, wow, this is such a great genre. I love it so much. And that's really what it started from.
Your background is that you're a teacher. And your students design this really cool cover. And once you read the story, you understand it so much more. So what did they think of the book?
I teach at elementary school. The students that design the cover teach at the high school. But one of my former students is actually the one who got the cover design. And on the inside of the book, if you take a look, you see the logo, and another student got that. And I have had several students, whether they won the cover or not, have come up to me and said, wow, what a great story. When is the second one coming out? So I was really excited for them. And the students I work with today, I was sitting with my third graders just yesterday, and I told them, oh, by the way, I have this TV interview. I'm like, oh my God, you're so famous. Are you going to talk about us? I said, well, I don't think that's what we're going to be talking about, but I'll mention you. So there you go. I just did it. Thank you, third grade.
My pleasure. So what about the characters? What did you base them on? Former students?
As in any epic novel, you have, so many different characters. Some are based on people I know. Some are I just, came up with. Others are based on people that I don't know very well, but didn't like me very much. So I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to put that. I remember that guy. I remember that lady. I'm going to put them in. So, there's a potpourri of choices that you make when it comes to your characters and their development. And the main characters are people that are near and dear to me. I won't say too much, but they are definitely people that I have known, especially when I was young.
How do you keep track of the characters, their personalities, and, their goals? Because these guys were definitely determined in different areas. That's a good.
Yeah, they're quite they're not your prototypical, shining white knights. They're definitely a bit grayer, even dark in some areas, so they're really quite fun. As far as keeping track of them, when I first started, I just said, well, I'll just, I think about it and I keep it in my head. That ended pretty quickly, especially as I got more and deeper and deeper into the development. And I just said, I got to start writing things down. And even things as simple as a character I might have introduced, 30 chapters ago or 20 chapters ago, well, I'll sit there and go, what color hair did this person have? And I had to go back. I was like, I need to start writing this stuff down. And it really is a labor like that. You do have to have your facts together, especially in big books. I know when I've read epic fantasy, I'm like, that's not what you said 2 books ago. What's the matter with you? You didn't remember? You don't always remember. So I have a little bit more sympathy for those authors now. But I do try to be, pretty good about that. So I do write stuff down.
Oh, well, it definitely shows because they're so consistent in the way they are. Now, what about gardening? Because this came up a lot. There was the mint berry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
all these different landscapes.
There was a lot of... One of the things I like to do is I like to hike. When I know people have different ways of outletting their energy or being creative. I live in a great area where there's so many massive, trails around here, hiking trails. And I grew up in upstate New York where, there's so much, trees and foliage and all that thing. So when I go out there, that's kind of what I'm thinking about my story when I go out and hike, 4 or 5 miles a day. And I see certain things like, oh, I like that. I like that. When you brought up the mint berry, that was funny because I said, well, I want it to be a kind of berry similar to a raspberry. And so I just got on the internet and said, all right, research raspberries. Now, the mint berry, I believe I came up with that name, but I did a lot of research on raspberries and how to describe them. And you do a lot of research. It's really funny. It's fun. I know people are out there researching all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to get into all the things I've researched, but that was one of those things. I was, I need to know more about plant life, especially if my characters are going to be dealing with certain kinds of things, mountains and trees and like you mentioned, the mint berry. So all of those factors that I wrote about are take place in creating this thing. And you don't really think about it. You're like, oh yeah, there's a tree. Oh, there's a blackberry. Yeah, let's go get it. But a lot of it, stuff I didn't understand. I was like, thank God I took a little bit of botany, but I did some research.
It all played out really well. What about a lot centered around the injustice for doing the right thing?
Yes.
So how does that come up, like when you're teaching? Because I can imagine that must come up a lot.
Oh, it does. The schools will have a certain rule. You see somebody, following the letter of the law, but they're not really doing the right thing. And so as an educator, a lot of times you have to intervene and say, well, yes, I know that's the rule. However, in this case, let's take a little bit beyond that. What was really the right thing we should have done here? So yeah, that happens. It's not just in school. I think that happens in life all the time, as I'm sure you know. But yeah, that's a big thing with those main characters in particular, without saying too much, somebody has done them dirty and they tried walking straight and narrow. They're like, yeah, that didn't work for us. We're going to do what we think is best.
I know. I love the way it played out, though, because you really you did it in such a way that it was entertaining to read, but it stayed with you afterwards, which makes it a great book for middle school and high school.
Yes, I appreciate you saying that.
And what about the Mirrored Falls? Is that a real place?
I think it's a kind of mix of these beautiful waterfalls I've seen. The Bernie Falls up in Northern California. I went up there years ago, and I just said, wow, this is kind of what I want for my setting, my Mirrored Falls. And, it's famous, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure. But he said it was like the 8th wonder of the world. And I agree with him. After seeing it, I was sitting there going, what an unbelievable thing. And a little known fact, the water there is so cold, if you go in, you instantly freeze. Because I've jumped in several times. I thought my heart was going to stop the first time. And I was sitting there going, what did I just do? I can't even feel my hands. I've been in for 1 second. So I was like, I'm getting out of here. It was great. And everybody around me was going, that guy jumped in. It's like, I thought we could. So it was really funny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that explains the adventure in the story.
Oh yeah, I got all kinds of issues.
What kind of history or books that you've read do you think helped influence your story, especially history? Because different parts of history seem to pop up here and there to influence what was going on.
One of the very first book that I read by my favorite author, who's David Gemmell, the very first book I read of his was The Lion of Macedon. And, it talks about the days of Alexander the Great, actually the days just previous to that. And our main character is a general. I believe you say his name is Parmenion. I always get it wrong. But, he did such a great job researching Greek history. And I just fell in love with it. I said, wow, this is... I had no idea. I mean, I was like, the ancient gods. Everybody likes those. But to take a look at the politics of the time and the history of the time, I always liked that. And he really gave me a love for that kind of time. And of course, that flowed over into the Roman times as well. And who doesn't like, the Middle Ages? I've always enjoyed that. So this is a world that kind of combines those three different cultures. The money, I'm sure as you saw, I'm sure you saw, oh, this is Greek currency. I wanted that. The crystalline sea, which is our main backdrop, it's based after, loosely, the Mediterranean Sea. So I always kind of enjoyed that in history. And that's really where that history came from. I did do a lot of research on that time and that era.
I was just so impressed with the way it flowed. And just one of those books you really couldn't put down. And I like the brothers who are hunters. Is it?
Yeah, they're fun.
I can't pronounce. Zidane and Kildare,
yeah.
Kildare. Oh, the Kildare. That's cute.
That's all right, yeah.
Yeah, the play on their names was really cute, too.
No, they're I don't know what to say. They're a lot of fun. And luckily, I grew up, I had brothers. So I know that kind of conversation that goes between siblings. It's not always serious. A lot of times they just get in each other's face, but you see there's a real bond between those two, especially as much as they've been through together.
Oh, definitely. They were daring. They were funny. They have these really good quips that they come back with.
Yes, they are. I'd like to send a shout out to my brothers for doing that to me for many years. So a lot of that comes from them.
And I like that it was pretty clean throughout. You didn't need to get into... you just didn't get into a lot of unneeded romance or interactions like that. And it just was so intense.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. And there is a bit of romance there, but I didn't want it to overwhelm the rest of the story either.
No, there is a little bit. The chameleon.
Oh, yeah, she's fantastic. I love her. She's great.
She was great. And then so I like the way that you wrote it. It's like in between going back and forth reading it, because it's definitely not readable in one sitting. But you ponder if some of it's real, how their actions are going to play out in the next couple chapters. You just can't wait to get back to it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And that is true. I think, one of the things we even talk about at school is any action you have is going to have a consequence, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And these characters, whether it's the Kildare and Zidane storyline or the other storyline, things that they do matter. Things that they do are going to change the events. And the hard part as an author is trying to keep it all straight and say, well, what am I going to have happen and how is that going to affect things later on? Again, it's so much fun to write. I totally enjoy it. I never thought I would enjoy writing as much as I did. And I didn't even start writing until after college.
What kind of teacher are you?
Oh, I teach. So I taught 21 years in the classroom. Most of that I taught fifth grade. Oh, okay. I'm currently the PE teacher. So now I get paid to play kickball, and jump rope and stuff, which I feel like going, I spent 21 years teaching math and reading. I could have been doing this the whole time. You got to be kidding me. However, That's the kind of teacher I am. And I always tell people, they say, well, what kind of teacher are you? I'm like, that fun guy teacher who was serious, but also everybody wanted him in class. I'm that guy. I'm that teacher, I feel like. That one male elementary teacher that you have, I'm him. I'm the one that, is active and does things, and let's go play lists. Let's go do this. I've always been like that. I'm pretty active as it is. So
It really shows in your writing. And I like the way that the political intrigue plays out and the Ice Warrior.
Yes, right at the end there. I don't want to get too much into the sequel, which I'm happy to say comes out in 2 weeks.
Oh, good.
On the 18th. But you will see a lot of what happened in the first book, affect that second book. And I don't want to say anything about how good it is or how bad it is. I just say, the reviews have come in and people seem to like it, so I'm happy about that. And I know I have many people dying to get that second book, so I'm like, it's coming out. You just got to be patient. So,
how much time was there in between book 1 and 2?
So when I originally wrote it, book 1 and book 2 was all one massive book, and it was 250,000 words or something. And I sat there going, I really need to split this in half. So there wasn't as much time as maybe there would have been. However, as the story evolved, once book 1 was done, I said, well, I'm going to need to make some changes to book 2. So it took me about 6 months to get it edited and new chapters written and new scenes written, because it ended up being a little bit longer than this first book. But I was excited to get it done and get it in, and I sent it to my publisher, and my alpha readers read it, and they just were like, how do you come up with all this? I'm like, I don't know. It just happens.
Well, what about the mountains that come up a lot throughout here? Were there any mountains that you visited in the United States or around the world that really influenced how that whole world came about?
Yeah, so I lived in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York, so I did hike a lot of those. And once I moved out to Nevada, where the Sierra Nevadas are, the Sierra Nevada mountains, they have a big influence on it. A lot of things that I see when I'm out hiking make it into the book, and that's an important thing as far as the scenery. There's another example. I was vacationing in Mexico, and I was walking along the streets there. And not only did I see the mountains and the bay, but the street life that I witnessed as I walked along the Maricon, I believe it was in Puerto Vallarta. When I wrote one of my chapters, I wrote it when I was in Mexico, because I just seen all that. I was like, man, this is going to have a nice, that influence. I'm going to put this in there. So it does. Things that you see and experience, they will affect, I think, your writing. At least it did for me.
What about a military background? Because there seems to be some hard and fast rules that some of these characters follow.
Yeah, I was in the Army, the United States Army, for 9 years, I believe. I went through the Army Reserve and the National Guard. So I do have that background as well. I tell people now I was in the Army, they sit there going, when did you do that? Oh, when I was young. How old are you now? I'm getting older. Stop asking me that. But yeah, when I was 17 or 18 years old, I joined. I was in for 9 years. And then, once I left, I said, well, I'm glad I did it. It was great, but I'm time to move on. But I do have some of that military background, which does not mean I'm an expert by any means. But I do have that experience as well.
I tried so hard to find this hidden code that I saw was in this book. But I think...
I can tell you where it is, but I'm not going to do it unless you tell me to.
No, don't give it away. But okay. I think that a big theme in the book was becoming the person you were always capable of. Mm-hmm. I think that was huge. And I just love the whole world. I love the hunting experience. I just really wanted to hang out with these guys. They were so cool.
Well, you get to hang out with me, so they're all in me apparently. Thank you. Yeah, it was a fun read, and we talk about having strong characters. You brought about Chameleon, who as a female character in this book, you instantly see just what she's like. Her interaction with Kildare, I think, was one of my favorite scenes in the book, because you see these two people that are very stubborn. They don't really know what the other one's doing. There's very little trust there. and they just kind of snap at each other. It's really fun, and I like that. And with my Princess Lydia, we see her kind of as a female in a male-dominated society, and she's trying to change that. And as she meets with this character McClure, she does start to grow, and she does become a little bit, more and more who she's meant to be. And that continues, it's to an even greater scale in the second book. So I'm really proud of my female characters because I'm not a female. So I'm like, I want them to be heroic and I want them to be strong. And it doesn't mean they're chopping up everybody into little bits. People, I think, mistake that as being a strong character. I'm like, yeah, but there's other ways to be strong. That's not the only way. So to me, that's an important aspect that I wanted to touch on with those female characters.
I loved the female characters. They were very well done, and they were strong. They were opinionated, and
yeah, thank you.
They were really interesting. So it seemed to go along that whole I can't pronounce it today.
Invictus, yeah.
Yeah. Was that the part that was hidden?
No. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. No,
okay.
By the way, nobody has ever seen it. Unless I tell them it's there, nobody ever finds it.
All right, you can't tell me because I'm going to read it again to try to find out. But it's okay if you give us a hint without giving it away.
Okay, so in the chapter where Kildare and Zidane visit Warlin, it's in that chapter specifically. In fact, it's in that note that McClure sends to Warlin. I would tell you the page, but I think it scans to 2 pages. I think it's chapter 23. I think that's the chapter.
Okay, chapter 24.
I think it's 23.
23.
I think Kildare and Zidane have those odd chapters, as I recall. Yeah, it is chapter 23. In fact, I have my book right here, page 475 and 476. It's in there.
Oh, okay. I think I get it. I'll check with you after.
That's fine.
Well,
I'm excited.
I just don't want to give it away because.
No, that's fine. I don't think anybody even knew there was a code. I have to tell them, which is kind of one of those, what are they called? Those Easter eggs that's in there. So.
How many books will be in this series?
So this is a planned 6-book series. The second book is done. I'm actually working on the third book. I think I just finished the 8th chapter of the third book. So yes, it's going to be a 6-book series. Now there is a possibility, if I'm feeling it, which I probably will be because I want to jump in and do these, I'll probably do 3 prequels as well. I have a novella I've already written that will go with that. And it will explore some of the things that made these characters who they are in this book. So this could potentially be a 9-chapter series, but right now it's set for 6.
That sounds
9. I'm
great.
sorry, not 9 chapters, 9 books. But right
9
now
books.
it's 6 for sure.
9 novels. Yeah. Or no,
9
6 novels.
Well, it would be 6 novels and then 3 more prequels. So it would be 9 novels.
Okay.
And there are some other things in the works as well. But if you ask me that later, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
If you ask me what I'm working on, then I'll bring it up then.
No, I was just really impressed. It's such an inspirational kind of book too, even though it has all these other factors going on. When you're young, it's, everything's a catastrophe. So I think young readers would really love it. Because, even as an adult, we get into that mindset every once in a while where it's like everything's going wrong. But I love how they bounce back from things, and tackle the next thing on the agenda.
Yes, they're pretty resilient. They're kind of jack of all trades. And that's just not just those 2 characters, but some of the other characters too. And your villains have to be like that as well. You can't just be bad guys that do one thing and then, well, that didn't work, now we're dead. I mean, I tried to write my villains as, sharp and smart, and they have their problems, just as my heroic characters do, the protagonists do. But your villains are not, they're not dumb. They have resources. They're tough to deal with. So.
No, and they do have an insidious kind of plan there.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. They're pretty mean. They're pretty bad.
They are pretty bad. But I was just so impressed with the way that I just couldn't put it down.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to hear that, actually. So I know how many books you read, so it's nice to hear that you really enjoyed it, because I know that means a lot coming from you.
No, I definitely have to read it a second or third time to find that hidden clue too.
I will tell you, if you get a chance, and you certainly don't have to do this, but the audiobook is phenomenal. We hired this guy, Joshua Saxon. I mean, good Lord, that guy is a brilliant narrator. His voice inflections, so good. I just got his first 7 chapters of the second book, and I'm riveted sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And I know what's going to happen because I wrote it. But no, he's phenomenal. So if you get a chance, if that's something you'd be interested in,
That
he's
sounds
phenomenal.
good.
He's really good.
And did you get to decide on that, or do your publishers choose those?
Yeah, the great thing about having my publisher, which is Three Ravens Publishing, I owe them so much. I've learned so much just from working with them. They sent out the information, and I think we had around 20 practice readers or auditions, and some were good and some were not good. But there were 2 in the end that were just phenomenal, and we ended up going with Joshua Saxon, who, God, he was phenomenal. I can't even the first book, which I've read so many times. I actually got sick of reading. I was like, I really don't want to hear this again. I did want to listen to his chapters, and I was like, oh my God, did you hear that? I wrote that. Did you hear that? I mean, it was just so exciting to hear. And he did such a great job. He actually did a better job than I would have ever dreamed possible. So I've heard a lot of people, that have read the book, or I'm sorry, I've heard the audiobook. They just rave about him, and rightly so. He is really good.
Oh, I can't wait to hear the audiobook. Well, thank you for sharing so much about how you created this exceptional series that would be a really incredible movie.
Wow. I mean, we'll see. If Netflix calls, I'll talk to him. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
There you go. If you guys want an awesome book to read that'll keep you up really late and totally turned in, Dark Storm Rising will totally capture your attention. We'll see you soon.